And so I have come to give you the gift of money. Let me hear you say the gift. Are you ready for the gift of money? I've discovered that God has given us so many gifts that we have never put to use. I just finished a series on prayer at the Palace in New York. And in teaching the people some of the higher levels of prayer, I reminded them that prayer is really no longer supplication. That's a very elementary level of prayer. But as you go upward in the levels of prayer and in your prayer techniques, prayer becomes an exercise of acknowledging the gifts which God has already given you. And you would be surprised at all the things that God has already given you. And yet people are insulting God by asking God for what God has already given them. I love to see the faces of people when I make this statement. I say, God doesn't have anything else to give you. I said, I'm sorry to tell you that, and yet glad. And quickly, because of the looks on their faces, I have to explain. The reason God doesn't have anything else to give you is because, first of all, God has already given you everything. Isn't that interesting? And when you seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, then all these things are added unto you. Why? Because in the kingdom of God and his righteousness, every good thing is already contained. But so many times we try to get the things without the kingdom. That's really dishonest. Stop trying to get the things out of the kingdom and just walk on into the kingdom and claim it. What did Jesus say? Fear not, little flock. It is the Father's good pleasure to do what? To give you the kingdom. Well, why these begging prayers? I remember when I was conducting a healing and blessing meeting in Miami, Florida some years ago, and I was preaching, and I was doing the prayers of affirmation, and people were getting healed, jumping out of wheelchairs, throwing down crutches and canes and so on. And there was a little lady, I guess she must have been in her 90s. And as I was praying and preaching, she was rubbing her arthritic knees saying, please, Jesus. Oh, please, Jesus. I stopped in the middle of what I was doing and pointed at her and said, Mama, don't pray like that in here. She almost lost her teeth. I said, you see all of these people just accepting and receiving their healing? Just receive it. And you see, this evening, I'm going to teach you how to utilize a gift that you already have and maybe just didn't know how to work it. Because you know what Reverend Coleman says, it works if you work it. Here's another open secret. It's not that you don't have it. It's just that you don't work it. And you need to learn how to work it. Being from past generations, when we get these new television sets and so on, I have to call one of the kids to turn it on. I have to learn how to work it. Or call somebody who knows how to work it. So I want to teach you one of the aspects of the gifts that you've not been taught too much about. Now, I want everybody to wave your Reverend Ike study guide at me. Everybody. In Reverend Ike's study guide, if you can pan that book, TV Men, real close. Reverend Ike's Secrets for Good Health, Happiness, Love, Success, Prosperity, and Money. And you will find the reference lesson for this session on chapter 14, page 81. So keep your thumb there in chapter 14, page 81, and the subject of that chapter is, what is your financial psychology? Say that.
What is your financial psychology?
Get real close on that TV man. And those of you that are wondering how to get this book, if you send me some money, I'll send it to you. Let them look right into my eyes when I say that. The post office won't bring it for nothing. So if you send me $15 and say, send me the book, I'll send it. And you can join us here in these studies and receive the gift of money. All right. Now, I just love to do this. Let me hear you say, I just love this.
I just love this.
Well, you know what I told you also Sunday, and I'm serious. So we love to laugh here and we enjoy ourselves and we have a good time. But remember, I am serious. Tell the person next to you, he's serious.
He's serious.
I said when Reverend Ike talks about money, it's got to show up. You know I'm crazy enough to believe that? You see, and that's the problem with some of you, you know, you've got too much sense. You know that you can't get any money. I make the sign of the cross like the Catholics to cross it out. See, that's another thing. Well, Reverend Ike, I want to do such and such and such and such, but I don't have. Thou art ensnared by the words of thy mouth. Like I was up at a radio station doing a taping on yesterday. They asked me to come in. And I said to a couple of the young ladies there in the station, I said, listen, I said, do you know that I asked for somebody to buy me some time on TV so that I can put on the service that I did at Reverend Coleman's that I spoke for on Sunday? And 3 of them said to me, well, I can't do that because I'm not in television, I'm in radio. I said, well then get into television. And you already have your first customer if you get me the time. Now you can't lose with the stuff I use. And you can't miss if you work with this. It's just like one day I was at one of our offices alone and the doorbell rang and I went and it was a lady Federal Express delivery person. And as usual, I pulled out some paper money and handed to her when she gave me the package. And guess what she did and said? She backed away from it and she said, I don't think that I'm allowed to receive this. I could not suppress a sermon. Now, this is all about the gift of money. Now, that person had what I call again a money rejection complex. Can you imagine that? Somebody handing you some money and you're backing up, saying, I don't think I'm allowed to receive that. Now that may sound funny, we've laughed about it, but do you know a lot of people have an attitude like that about money? What do you mean you're not allowed? They won't let me. And that's another reason why people sometimes have hang-ups about being wealthy and successful and prosperous. Do you know why? Both consciously and subconsciously, they're afraid of what they would say. They're afraid even of their own families. Because, you know, your brothers and sisters don't want you to get too far ahead of them. God knows my dear mother loves me. She's in the other dimension. But she and I walked 4 miles to school every day and 4 miles back on the unpaved roads of South Carolina. And many people passed and splashed mud and water and dust on us. Some stopped, God bless them, and gave us a ride. And she made the sum of $65 a month. The best thing that a black woman could do in those days was to be a school teacher. And after a while, when I got the gift of money and I started prospering, and every time I'd look around and Mama would come, I would go and visit Mama, and I would come in, and the first thing I did was to put some money in Mama's hand before I asked her how she was. See, I'm teaching you a secret now. Don't ever go to visit your mama and ask her how she's doing and how she's been until you give her some money. Because you see, I've been an evangelist. I've been preaching since I was 14. And sometimes I wouldn't see Mama for months. And when I would go back to the house and I said, Mama, how you been? Oh, son, I thought I was going to die. I had the rheumatism and the, as Reverend Coleman would say, the conkers and the bonkers. And she said, I thought I was going to die. And I said, well, Mama, I'm glad you didn't. So one day as I was getting near the house, I said, Lord, I don't want to hear Mama complaining today. The Spirit said, pull your car over. And having been evangelizing, I had lots of $1 bills. And I reached in that big bag of $1 bills. And I counted out 100 of them. That was big money in those days. Colored preacher with $100. In South Carolina, riding in a brand new Cadillac, looking good, feeling good, and smelling good. And I got that money ready, put it in my side jacket pocket, and I went in to see Mama. And Mama was sitting there, and before Mama could say anything, I said, oh, Mama, I'm so glad to see you. And I reached in and took that money and just socked it to her. Spread it all over her lap, let some of it fall out all around the floor. Mama started smiling. And then I said, well, Mama, how have you been? She said, son, I've been all right. I said, but Mama, how's that rheumatism? I haven't had any of that. And until my mother passed on, I would never go to visit her until, first of all, I gave her the gift of money. And I remember when she was in the hospital and they called me and I flew down from Boston, and she'd had a stroke and couldn't talk, and they didn't know whether she was going to make it or not. And when I finally walked in that hospital room, when she saw me, she smiled. And I know what she was saying in her heart. Here comes my sonny with the money. And a week later, I and Mama walked out of that hospital together. You can say what you want about money, but it's all right. Tell the folks next to you, money is all right. I know I've been changed. I know I've been
been changed. I know I've been changed. The angels in the heaven